Hi, I'm Scotty Boman. I've been involved in petition efforts on a number of levels before. I was the chair of a statewide ballot access effort for a political party, which was successful. I've also participated as a signature collector on a variety of different ballot issues, and I have signed petitions for candidates who are seeking political office. Now today we're going to talk about how petitioning can help you become an active player in our political process. Whether it is getting a political party on the ballot, changing a law, putting a new law on the ballot, getting someone that you like on the ballot to run for office, or recalling someone from office, the petitioning effort is the first step. This is the way in which voters first take something from your efforts out there on the street and get it into something that is there in the ballot box when people go to vote on election day. Once you have a petition and you're ready to circulate it, you first need to find a place to do your petition. And of course you need to come prepared. So make sure you have at least 2 clipboards, multiple copies of the petition, and have some pens available, preferably in black or blue and not red. Next, when you seek out a place to petition, you want it to be a place where you're allowed to petition. Now, one surefire place where you will be allowed to petition is in front of your neighborhood post office. The reason you can petition in front of the local post office is because it falls under a category in which courts have decided that they cannot deny your right to petition in front of the post office. So you can just get your clipboard, have your pen ready, have your papers out, and as long as you're not obstructing someone's path through the door, you can ask them for their signature. And other place that's good to petition, of course, is on private property where you have the property owner's permission. Now this, of course, requires participation of the property owner, and you need to discuss it in advance. That's a little stricter than simply walking out in front of the post office, but it may provide you to be closer to a group of people that are interested in the particular issue or cause that you're petitioning for. Finally, there are the public venues where it is outdoors and people are waiting for something to do. Great places to petition include where people are waiting in line. They're waiting to go in someplace or waiting to get something, and they have nothing to do when they're waiting in line. They're usually staring at their feet, looking up because they don't know the people in front or behind them. And you can just start going down the line asking people one at a time if they'd be interested in signing your petition. When you go out to petition, make sure you're prepared. Make sure to bring at least a couple clipboards, multiple copies of the petition, at least a couple pens, because you never know when some of them dry up. And it's also good to have a little handout describing what you're petitioning for, in case people have a lot of questions, you want to get through that quickly. Now you have to find a place to petition. And one surefire place to petition where you know you can get away with it is out in front of your friendly neighborhood post office. Courts have ruled that it is illegal for the post office to stop you from petitioning out front. So you don't need to go in and ask anybody. You just get your materials, wait out there for a postal customer to arrive, and proceed to introduce them to your petition. Now there are some restrictions, like you don't want to block their pathway to the door, besides getting them angry and having absolutely no effect on anything positive. That would also be breaking the rules, and then they really could make you move and stop your petition. So just don't block their path, and otherwise you're free to petition in front of a post office, which is great outdoors on a sunny day. So one good place that you can petition if you're in an outdoor public setting is when there's people waiting in line, because they can be waiting in line for refreshments or foods or to buy tickets for something, get on a ride. Walk up near the front of the line and work your way back, and so that way the people who are otherwise left without anything to do now have something to do. You can have their complete undivided attention, and they're not going anywhere because they don't want to lose their place in line, and introduce them to your petition. So that's one good way, is because people are not in a hurry passing between their car and a doorway, for instance, as we might have here. Now another case where you can find people waiting, where they're not really going anywhere, is at fireworks, because people are up there staring at the sky, waiting for something to happen, and meanwhile just trying to pass the time. And it's usually they'll be out on the grass somewhere, with towels or whatever, just trying to be comfortable. And you can walk up to people and approach them with your petition that way. So that is another way where you can get people where they aren't too busy to sign, where obviously they have nowhere to go, nothing to do. And as long as they don't particularly dislike what you're looking for, they're not disqualified to sign, that's a good thing. Now, legal petitions require people who are registered to vote within a certain jurisdiction. One way to guarantee that your signers fit this qualification, and this is under only very certain, you can only do this under very specific circumstances, is if there happens to be an election prior to the one you're petitioning for, and it happens to be well timed, that it's around the time you're doing your petitioning, that then you can actually wait at a polling place. And here's how you work that, is if people are going in to vote, don't get in the way. They're getting stuff handed to them by all these candidates or people promoting a cause that's in that election. You're not concerned with that election. You're thinking about the next election. So after they're done voting and they're coming out, those people with the I voted sticker who all the other folks are ignoring, now you can walk up to them with your petition and you don't even have, well, you could still ask if you're a registered voter, but it's pretty much a foregone conclusion, and you already know where they vote. You already got the right petition out. And then you can introduce them to what the cause or the candidate or the party is that you're petitioning for, and proceed from there. So once you have your place selected to circulate your petition, you want to be able to find someone to sign the petition. Now, you don't want just anybody signing your petition. You just walk up and say, hey, we like this here, please sign it. No, you want to have a person who's qualified to sign the petition. And for legal petitions that we're talking about today, the person needs to be a registered voter in the jurisdiction for which you are circulating the petition. So for instance, let's say it's a statewide petition. Then your best opening line is, hello, are you a registered voter in Michigan? Then they will either answer yes or no. And if they're answering yes, they're the people you want to sign this, which is good because you also already have them saying yes to something. And the next thing you want them to be saying yes to is signing your petition. Now, the petitions in other jurisdictions, of course, you would introduce it that way. For instance, if it were a Detroit petition, I'd say, hi, are you a registered voter in Detroit? Or Wayne County petition, hi, are you a registered voter in Wayne County? And so forth. Now, even the statewide petitions are a little more focused. And so once you have the person interested in your petition, you're going to want to ask what county they're in, for instance, if it's statewide, because you have separate pages by county for that statewide petition. So that would be the next part in the selection process. Before you get to that point, you're probably going to be wanting to then state the purpose, though, of why you're circulating the petition, and phrase it again as a question. For instance, hi, we'd love to have a political party that supports this issue. Now, sometimes people will respond that they've already signed your petition. If they've already signed your petition, thank them and then move on. You do not want to have a person double sign a petition. It won't count twice. In fact, it'll do just the opposite. It'll count against you. Because in the verification process for screening petitions, they will strike off a number of signatures statistically based upon the number of invalid signatures that they happen to see at random. So you definitely want to avoid double signing because that invalidates their signatures. Second of all, let's say they're not sure. Still, you're better off safe than sorry. If they're not sure, you probably should not have them sign because there's a possibility that you'd have that double signature. Now, they might just flat out say no. They may not like what you're doing, or they may not even be listening. You get people that are totally shut off, have blinders on, and they might happen to like what you're saying if they gave you the time of day, but they won't. Okay, for that, we have this rule, I sometimes call it SW to the third power plus N. And it stands for some will, some won't, so what, next. There are a lot of voters out there, and you don't want to miss the ones that will sign your petition, arguing with the one or chasing down the one that won't. Also, always have a pen ready to use. As soon as they are agreeable to the idea of signing petition, you want to uncap your pen and hand it to them. You want them to be, they want it to be ready to go. You want to make this easy for them. Hold the clipboard for them, point out each part of the petition you want them to sign, walk them through it, because you don't want to have them make mistakes, and it gets frustrating if they have to do it again. But always have your pen ready. And then, of course, you got your argumentative person, the person that may ultimately end up signing your petition, but they just really are not sure. They may just have doubts about it, and they might be happy about it later, but they're just not sure at that moment. Now, if you have time and it's not a crowded day and there's no one else walking up, then you get time to sit and explain in great detail what your petition is about and the cause. And your petition should actually have the text of the law on the back, though it may often be too much for them to really have time to sit and read. In the event, though, that you have people coming by who may not, you might miss because you're busy explaining and it's involved in the person initially upon your summary explanation still isn't interested but hasn't ruled it out completely. And they just need more time, or they say, well, I really just don't want to sign at this time. I'd like to get back to you and that kind of thing. For those people, it's very important to have a little brochure available just summing up information about your petition. It would be great if it, for instance, has a web page on it as well, and then they could look things up in great detail until they're satisfied they understand the issue enough to sign. It's good to have those items available. So if you have a situation where there's lots of people walking by, you can even hand it to them. They can look it over while you're still there, and you can be busy approaching the next person to see if they're interested in signing. Of course, opening up with "Are you registered voters?" It may also be important to have specific contact information with your name, phone number, email address, information of that sort on there, so they can get directly back to you in case they want to sign your petition. If you want to be able to meet them somewhere to have them sign it, or let them know where you're going to be circulating again. You might also end up finding that you get a volunteer for future petitioning efforts. In fact, sometimes you might just get signers or people already signed who would like to circulate the petition on their own, and you'd like to be able to contact those people so that they can help your cause. Once you have a person ready to sign, you want to make sure they sign the right page. Now, in statewide petitions, you need to be able to do it by county. So ask them which county they're from, and always have pages with the most populous counties already filled out and the county you're in. You're most likely to run into people who are from A, either a well-populated county, or B, the county that you're in. However, you may have people from counties that you hadn't even heard of before. You may want to have some extra sheets with you that have a blank space where at the top of the page where it asks you to fill out the county. In that case, leave that part blank on a few extra sheets, and then when you get a person from that county, fill it in just for them, put it in front, let them be the first person to sign their name on that page for that county. Now, if you happen to have the page already made with the county listed on it, you may also wish to include what we sometimes call a seed signature. What you do there is you put a signature on there, it could be your own, fill it out. You might say, well, I already filled out my signature on the first petition I circulated. That's fine. Put your name on there, fill it out, and it's not a problem. You won't get in any trouble with it, as long as it's crossed out when you're all done and you're turning in your signatures. The service that a seed signature does is it shows the next signer where items go, that they actually see, oh, this is where I sign my name and this is where I print my name. They actually see the name of a city printed out. Where it says street address, they see that they only need to put their house number and street, and that there's another box for the name of their city, and so on. They see that post office means zip code. They see that the date is today's date, or a date before today's date, but is not their birthday. That's one thing that the seed signature does. Another thing it does, on a more subconscious level, is the person approaching the clipboard and seeing another signature on there feels more comfortable with signing. That person being approached with a completely blank page where they're the first signer. Now, of course, it's very critical to actually watch the person signing the petition while they're signing, because you want to guide them to do the right thing the first time. Make sure to mention, just mentioning what column they're on. When it's place to fill in city or township, say city or township. If they forget to check a box, remind them, hey, could you check the box for city or township? And because actually there are cases where there is a city and a township which each have the same name and are not the same place. Next, of course, you're going to have them fill out their, signature and printed name. You want to be able to tell them which it is. And so when it's a place to put their signature, say, please sign your name. When it gets to print name, mention print name. When it gets to street address, they only need to put down their street number, apartment unit number, and street. There's another place, they've already filled out their city. And of course, if they're not from Michigan or the state you're circulating in, they shouldn't be signing that anyway. And then you got the zip code. And that's, sometimes it says post office. Now the reason it says post office is there's some cases where people had a mailbox in a different city than the township in which they live. And so they put down the name of the city there. However, if they simply write their zip code, that takes care of the dilemma altogether. And then you have the date. The date is probably one of the most problematic and critical boxes for them to fill out. Because people instinctively, when they fill things out and there's a place for a date, they will often put their birth date there. Make sure that as they get to that place, you say today's date. For instance, if it happens to be June 6, 2011, it doesn't hurt to say June 6, 2011. And another thing about the date that becomes problematic, if they sign a date that is early, and the date before they sign is a later date, for instance, if they sign that it's June 5th, 2011, and the signature right before them was June 6th, 2011, essentially that invalidates the whole line and they need to start over. There's other places where you can make corrections, but the date is not something that the Board of Canvassers will look kindly upon being corrected. Yes, when people write down the date, it's month, day, and year. And it is acceptable to either abbreviate or spell out the month or put down the number of the month. Since the box is fairly small, it's preferable to put down the number of the month. For the day, that would go in the second box, and that would be your 2-digit day, or if it's one, 1st through the 9th of the month, you can put that down. And then for the year, they can either put down the full 4-digit year or the 2-digit year, since it's unlikely the time window of circulation is going to be long enough for there to be any ambiguity on a 2-digit year. If a signer makes a mistake, it's often best to simply have them redo the entire line, because that way you can make sure there are no new mistakes. If they're in a hurry, then you need to be aware of a couple variations on perfection that are allowed. If they put extra information in with their address, that doesn't really hurt anything. If they do include their city and state in the same line as their street address, that's not really a problem. That won't kill it. If they actually mix their signature and their printed name up so they have them reversed, that won't kill it. And so if they're in a hurry, rather than having them do it over again, at that point you might as well just go ahead and accept it. If a person signs Mr. and Mrs., like if someone signs Mr. and Mrs. Boman or Mr. and Mrs. Scott Boman, sorry, you can't do that. You have to do it over. In fact, you should make it clear as soon as you're handing it to them that they should sign their own name when you get to it, because every person gets a vote and every individual gets an opportunity to sign the petition. So they can't sign for two. Okay? If there's a husband and wife both there, in fact, that's 2 signatures if they both agree. You want both of those. If they try to sign it as some kind of hybrid signature, then basically you've invalidated both. Another thing important for circulators. If you are a petition circulator, while it may be tempting to fill out everything and then go circulating the petition, and so you're all ready to go and say, oh great, I'm done, and you fill out you have the last part all done already, that's wrong. Legally, you are not supposed to fill out the circulator portion of your petition, which is in the lower right-hand corner of your petition. You're not to fill that part out until the rest of the petition has been circulated. So make sure that that petition is filled out, and then you fill out the circulator part. The date for the circulator part must be on the same date or later than the last signature on the petition. Otherwise, you will invalidate that nice page full of signatures. You don't want to do that. So always sign and date it after it has been completely filled out. Furthermore, take your time filling it out. While you may be in a hectic situation while you're circulating the petitions, you have plenty of time to sit down at a table later on and carefully fill out the circulator part of the petition to make sure it's done properly so that you don't damage the quality of all those signatures that you collected previously. Now let's say you have lots of people showing up who want to sign your petition and they're getting impatient waiting. That's when it's good to have two clipboards handy. You got two clipboards handy, and of course a pen to go with each one, and don't bring a red pen, bring black or blue pens, especially black pens are best. Then you can have one person, while one person's filling out the petition, that they seem fairly comfortable and they believe they can fill it out unsupervised. And you can go ahead and get the other petition in the other person's hands, and you can have two petitions being filled out at once. And this is a way you can get a lot more done in a shorter amount of time. I mean, you always got the shortcoming that, well, maybe people will make mistakes while you're not looking. Of course, that is a risk you got to assess on your own. Sometimes, for instance, you might have a family over here, a bunch of friends, and they've already heard you walk the first person through, and the next person isn't likely to make the same mistakes. Then they could be taking turns filling this out, and then the other people over here, you can get started on a separate clipboard. So let's say you have a family over here, and they're already filling it out, and you already explained it to the first person. Then everybody after them already has a good idea of what to do, and they could be filling out the petition while you have another group of people over on your other side can fill out the other clipboard that you brought along. And that way you got more than one clipboard being filled out at a time. Now sometimes you run into people that are not only aren't agreeing with your petition and not interested in signing it, and those people, like I said, don't worry about them too much. You know, some will, some won't, so what next? You don't want to, again, lose out on that good signature chasing down the person that isn't going to sign no matter what anyway. However, there is this other case, and that is the disruptive voter or activist who decides that in order to promote their cause, which happens to be against your cause or to oppose your candidate, that what they are going to do is try to disrupt the petition gathering process. Now, first of all, any direct attempt to block anyone else from signing your petition is illegal and a crime. And if you have someone else along who can document it, especially if they can video the incident, where then you have both a visual and auditory documentation of what the person's doing, then you have an excellent thing to take to court, especially if they pulled up in a car and you can follow them back in your car, get their license plate. Awesome. Often you don't have that luxury. Often you're out there alone petitioning and such a person shows up. There's different levels of disruptive or obstructive activists. Some people really aren't trying to be that way, it just comes out that way. Sometimes you get argumentative people that just love to argue and will continue arguing with you for its own sake, because that's the best thing they have to do with their time, and that's how they're getting the most intellectual stimulation and enjoyment. What we need to do in that case is say, I'd like to talk with you another time, but right now I'm busy, and I'd be really happy to discuss your views on another day, but not right now, and try to dismiss them politely and peacefully that way. And who knows, maybe you want to talk about it with them as well later. Other people won't let go and they'll continue. And maybe you got to repeat it a little more clearly. Right now I am devoted to this effort, and I realize you'd like to change my mind, but it's not going to happen today. We can agree to disagree today and get back on another day and discuss this elsewhere. If that doesn't work, then you may need to move. move away a little bit. Now, what are they allowed to do and not do? Well, they're not allowed to actually get in the way of another person signing. So one thing, when you see another person, ignore the person who's arguing. If you don't want, if you want to continue petitioning, and go approach the person that you wish to get a petition from and politely start from the beginning, introduce yourself. If that person starts interrupting and arguing, then they are now interfering. And it would be good if you could document it. Maybe you can. If you're alone and you don't have any other options and you take a note of situation, the person keeps getting in the way, and they could say a lot. The key is when they actually get between you and the voter, or they touch you. Anything like that, that's when you know they're breaking the law. But otherwise, they really can sit and talk to you, and you can't stop them from standing there and talking to you, because they have a First Amendment right as well. So, if it gets down to that, there is one more thing you can do, and that is simply move. Unfortunately, you may be at a great spot, but sometimes you just have to relocate. You don't have to do it very long. If they just happen to, unless they're staking the place out, in which case you can come back with someone. But otherwise, if they just happen to run into you and saw an opportunity to cause trouble for what you're doing, then once you're gone, they're going to get bored and they're going to leave. Wait it out, come back a little later, and you're back in business. Now, while the petitions ultimately end up in Lansing's for the Board of Canvassers to approve, you may often run into a situation where you've collected all your petitions and you want to get them handed in quickly. Don't stuff them in an envelope and send them to Lansing. Don't show up by yourself to hand them to the Secretary of State and say, here, I got some petitions. Remember, there's an organization overseeing the entire petition effort, and they got to be able to hand in the complete body of petitions as one bulk, with the cover page identifying how many signatures they've collected, with basically a breakdown by county. So you need to get with someone within your petition organization. Now, sometimes there will be people organized on a county or congressional district level, because state requirements will often require dispersal of signature collection at different levels, and they want to verify that there have been enough signatures from a given region collected. But in any case, when the petitions finally are due, they are due to be handed in as a group, and that's how it best should be handled. Now, let's say the day ends, and you have all your petitions collected, filled out the circulator section, and then you look at it and you realize, well, some of these look a little funny. There's things that look inconsistent. Perhaps there's names that you're not sure of. Addresses don't look probable. There's things that don't match. What do you do with that? Well, first of all, it's good to, you don't want to cross out a signature that's good, that can still be used. On the other hand, you do not want to submit a petition with signatures you know to be bad. Because, again, if it does, those end up being counted against you statistically based upon when they go and they start looking through your signatures at random. For every bad one they run into, that is multiplied many-fold to represent a large number of signatures that they don't get to look at. Now, when you find a signature you find disagreeable, it should be crossed out. A single line with a very thick, broad pen is good. Maybe double crossed, just to make sure that it's fully blocked, that it's not intended to be counted. And then regardless of what it says on there, it won't be counted for or against you. It's simply out of the picture. But how does one make these determinations? Okay, a signature is acceptable if it includes the name, city, or township where the signer is registered to vote. A mark to indicate whether a place is a city or a township. The name of the signer can be cursive printed, and the signature, street address, or rural route number, and the signer's zip code and proper date. And earlier I mentioned that the date has to be in sequence, and it needs to be the date they're signing. Each signer must affix his or her signature to the petition, which bears in the heading sheet the name of the county in which the signer is registered to vote. By the way, the circulator does not need to be registered in the same county as the signers on a statewide petition, as long as you are registered to vote in the state. However, all the people signing that page for that county must be registered in the same county. Now, here's what you should look for as far as invalidation. A signature is invalid if the signer is not registered to vote in Michigan. Hopefully you already got rid of that at your first question. 2, is registered to vote in the state but not in the city or township listed. In fact, if a person is unsure whether or not they should be signing one address or another address, for instance, they might say, well, you know, I just moved to Detroit last week, but I'm registered to vote in Grosse Pointe. Whatever city they are registered to vote in, before they change the registration date, wherever they were last registered to vote, that is where they should sign for. They are not legal to sign in the city they're currently registered. You're circulating a petition for that community and they want to sign and they just moved there, let them know they need to register to vote first in that community, then they can sign. Okay, and also, of course, even if they're legal to sign the petition, they need to be signing for the county that matches the name at the top of the sheet. Some of the things that will invalidate either your whole petition or signatures include: in the heading, a petition sheet is invalid if it contains one or more of the following irregularities in the heading sheet: the county where were circulated not listed, or there is more than one county of circulation listed, or it is not apparent from the cities and townships listed by the signers that the circulator was within a single county. The circulation was in a single county. In other words, you have signatures that appear to be from more than one county on the same sheet. And required information concerning the candidate or office sought was omitted from the petition. In other words, they didn't know what they were signing. Other things that can invalidate your petition. This has to do with you as the circulator. A petition sheet is invalid if it contains one or more of the following irregularities: it's not signed by the circulator, or not signed, or if more than one circulator signed the same petition, it's also invalid. It's got to be one sheet per circulator. If it is not dated correctly or is incompletely dated, that can invalidate it. Dates are very important. Make sure the date is on or after the last date of the last signer. If it's dated before all the signature dates, that would invalidate the whole petition. If the city or township of the registration is not listed, that would definitely disqualify a signature. If there's no street address or rural route number listed on a signature, that would disqualify the signature. If the circulator leaves that out, it disqualifies the entire page. Other details may be a little off, but will not invalidate the petition. For instance, if the county where circulated was not listed, or more than one county of circulation listed, and it is apparent from the cities and townships listed by the signers that circulation was within a single county. In other words, the only error was at the top, but everything else was in the same county, then it's redeemable. So definitely not desirable. If your signature is illegible as a circulator, it's still acceptable, though it's illegible. It's just how you sign it. If you fail to enter your zip code, or it's the incorrect zip code, it can still get by, but again, it's not really desirable. If you list a village or unincorporated place instead of the township registration, when village is or unincorporated place is contained within a single township, then at least it's valid because they know what township it is. Things that can affect the validity of the individual signatures. Okay, a signature is not acceptable if it contains one or more of the irregularities or omissions listed below. No city or township by that name in the county. In other words, the person's city or township is not part of the county. Not acceptable. Village or unincorporated place listed instead of township or registration, when village is not contained in a single township. In other words, they don't know which township, even though it's one community. The signature was crossed out prior to filing. Crossed out signatures don't count. The person may have changed your mind filling it out and crossed it out. If they do it right then, they can do that. By the way, if you walk away and they run into you the next day and want to take it off, no, you don't have to remove it. So most of all, when you're out petitioning, have fun. Now, you may not run into everybody being real eager to sign it, but the next person might be. And remember why you're circulating a petition. Hopefully it's something you believe in, and it's something you want to see accomplished. And if you're a professional petitioner, well, money is something you believe in. But in whatever case it is, if it's something you believe in and something you're enthusiastic about, keep that at the core of your thoughts. And that should guide you through and keep you in a positive mood about what you're doing. Don't let people get you down. Sometimes people are upset and they had a bad day. It's not you. It's them. And like I said earlier, some will, some won't, so what next? Just focus on the next person. Keep each introduction brand new, and don't let any baggage from any adverse interaction before drag you forward. On the other hand, when you have that good, positive person that's happy about what you're doing, that you really have a uplifting experience, that you ran into a kindred spirit while you're out there standing on the corner by the post office, remember that person also, because that might be the next person you meet, and you want to approach that person with a positive attitude. Also, don't prejudge people. It may be easy to size someone up and look at them and think, oh no, they're not going to want to sign this. This guy, he looks like he's a bit too redneck, or a bit too hippy-dippy, or a bit too, prim and proper, or he looks like a stoner. Whatever prejudgments you have, you don't know that person. You don't know that they might happen to like your cause in spite of being different from you in every other way imaginable. But they like what you're doing on that cause, and they're going to sign it. And that's what you want. So keep a positive attitude and greet every person fresh and anew, without judging, but expecting the best, and have a good time.